can you bring us up to date on what is happening with this situation? It sounds fairly horrific, the warnings.
Well, Police Service Northern Ireland have taken a fairly unprecedented step of publicly briefing the local population that there is a potential terrorist threat. Some community-sourced intelligence has really given them a steer that there is a really credible threat coming this Easter Monday, the anniversary, obviously, of the Good Friday Agreement, but also a very, very busy and challenging time for the police service in Northern Ireland. And this comes off the back of a massive uptick in dissident terrorist activity. We saw that there was a failed car bomb last November in Londonderry. There was also a number of police service Northern Ireland officers attacked in February, including the shooting of DCI John Coldwell. And in March, one of the dissident groups said that police officers were now a legitimate target. So this threat comes at a very worrying time.
Well, it is a worrying time, but there must have been anticipation of this. It's such an important anniversary, and we know that dissidents and this new IRA group, as they position themselves, I mean, there must have been quite a lot of understanding that this was going to be a difficult weekend.
I think they always anticipated that this would be a difficult weekend. I think the Easter period and effectively the parades that are organised to commemorate the Easter Rebellion always mean that there is a potential threat. I think in this circumstances in particular, with the arrival of Joe Biden and Rishi Sunak next week as well, security was always going to be ramped up, but it's quite an unusual step for them to brief publicly. I think the hope is that they will put pressure on the groups that are organising this and potentially to flush it out or at least cause concerns that their plans have been effectively leaked.
Joe Biden is set to arrive on Tuesday, and Bill Clinton is also visiting. Do you think, given the level of threat being raised in this way, that the visit is actually a good idea?
I think that's a very difficult question. I'd imagine that given the presence of the current president and a former president, I imagine that the security that comes with them will be of the highest calibre. I think it's something that Joe Biden probably feels very passionately about, and I think he would be reluctant to step back from doing this visit. And I think it would also send a real message if he was to not turn up to the terrorist groups. Yeah,
I mean, it would be, in terms of political messaging, a disaster, actually, wouldn't it, to say that they were getting a grip again. What are the concerns, though, is going to be that it is, I mean, certainly for this weekend and for Monday, it looks like it is police officers who could be targeted, and perhaps even their families as well. And yet this new strategy, or bringing back an old strategy of getting more officers out on the front line, actually, in front-line roles during this, and perhaps officers who aren't particularly well trained in this or a bit out of practice, if you like. I mean, that presents its own problems, doesn't it?
I think it presents some real operational challenges. It's one of those, having not put this plan into effect for nearly a decade, the skill sets that existed when this was a more prevalent threat are obviously going to have drifted away. And so there's going to be a real challenge in making sure that all the officers who are now being put into frontline roles are up to speed and are capable of dealing with the threat that's present. They've said already that they're looking at foiling gun attacks and bomb attacks, and that is a fairly specialist skill in being able to identify those.
We have had 30 years of peace. We've got to remember 3,500 people died in the Troubles, 30 years of the Troubles and 25 years of peace. Why is it so heated again now? Is it because of the dreaded Brexit situation, or is it the 25th anniversary itself of the Good Friday Agreement?
I'm not 100% sure on all of the causes behind this. I think these things come in waves. The attack recently on John Caldwell was blamed on the new IRA. I think it depends on the leadership of those groups and who potentially has momentum going forwards and where they spy those opportunities. And I think in doing so and gaining perhaps some successes or some minor successes, I think they feel emboldened to push that forwards and see if they can further their aims that way.
I'll tell you what's interesting, though. We've seen this since the Good Friday Agreement, that for those people, whereas in the past, and let's hope this isn't coming back to the case, in the past there was a lot of support for dissidents and what they were doing. Not from everyone, but from large groups. But when we got peace, suddenly it was people within Northern Ireland would do anything for peace. It's that they just want the peace to continue for the sake of themselves and their children and their grandchildren and what have you. So with this, you can imagine and if you're in Northern Ireland, let us know. But you can imagine actually being a lot of anger amongst ordinary people in Northern Ireland saying, we don't want to be dragged back.
I think so, and I think it really has a massive impact on the population, given as well that the targets are not only police officers, but also their families potentially, as well as prison officers and military personnel. That's a huge number of people who have friends and family, and to see those people targeted can cause some real concerns and some real stress and some real distress, really. For people nearby. So I can't imagine that this is particularly well supported.